Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. I like talking about U.S. presidents. I've done a number of videos just discussing U.S. presidents, and earlier I recently did one just showing how uh, the Republican Party, through its party bosses, one of its party bosses during the Gilded Age and the Reconstruction era, that's Roscoe Conkling, drafted and ratified the 14th Amendment, which is a very significant uh, amendment in the U.S. Constitution. Of course, it granted African American citizenship. It overturned the dreadful Dred Scott decision of 1857, which said people of African descent could not be U.S. citizens. And of course, the very important features of the 14th Amendment are, the citizenship, the definition of citizenship, and of course, the due process and equal protection of law clauses. However, in the earlier video, I made a slight mistake regarding the standard of review for an emergency evaluation petition, and I mentioned rational basis. So it's not a rational basis review that's used. Rational basis, standard of review, those are just legal principles. You don't have to worry yourself about that. That's something for lawyers. They're the ones who understand. So I'm just doing this to correct myself so I don't put any misinformation out there. So, regarding the 14th Amendment, which implicates fundamental rights. So fundamental rights, they include, liberty interest. Liberty interest, would include your life, your bodily autonomy, and so on and so forth. So those are fundamental rights. Your right to marry or not to marry. Those are fundamental rights. So things, state action which implicates a deprivation of your fundamental rights, there's a standard of review that the state has to comply with. So, with regard to the 14th Amendment, equal protection and due process of law, it requires the highest level of review, and that's what's called the strict scrutiny, not the rational basis. The rational basis is more lenient. The strict scrutiny, on the other hand, the state has a burden of proof, and they have to show a compelling government interest in depriving you of your fundamental rights. Now, however, I was trying to show an application of the 14th Amendment uh, to a real experience, and that's my personal experience with the abuse of an emergency evaluation petition by the state of Maryland, by Montgomery County, and by the petitioner, the fabulous Jide Iwarire. So, the courts have deemed that the applicable standard of review for an emergency evaluation petition would be the broader framework of a due process analysis with clear and convincing evidence that the evaluee, the subject, has a mental illness and is a danger to themselves or to others. So uh, it's less than the strict scrutiny standard, but this is just a decision that the courts have made. However, even though fundamental rights are implicated, uh, you know, um, of course, bodily autonomy, that's implicated when your rights are violated, your liberty interest is violated through an emergency evaluation petition. Bodily autonomy includes your rights to choose to make medical decisions, right? Your rights to refuse treatment, so that's bodily autonomy. But however, so that should have strict scrutiny because that's a fundamental right. However, the courts, have decided that they try and balance, way the they try and balance, the state interest. In this case, it can be the safety of the community versus the fundamental rights of the individual, the liberty interest. So somehow they've decided that the standard they should use is a due process analysis with a clear and convincing evidence that the person has a mental illness and that they are dangerous to themselves or to the community, to others. In any event, the the results are still the same in my case, that the state of Maryland still violated my 14th Amendment rights, because one, fraud can't be used, right? In my instance, I still have to have the benefit of the due process of law. Due process of law, I mentioned before, I'm still required to have notice, right? That's to have a hearing as well, a hearing to dispute the intent to commit, for me to bring my witnesses as well, and of course to have an impartial judge. None of these were provided to me, right? So my rights were clearly violated. It was an abuse of an emergency evaluation petition, and it violated my 14th Amendment rights. So I just wanted to make that correction, and so I'm keeping this video short. Again, remember Roscoe Conkling, who was of the Republican Party, and he was member of the Radicals in the Republican Party, and also the Stalwarts. And so in 1868, they ratified the 14th Amendment, which of course defined citizenship for us, and it also gave us due process of law, equal protection of law, and it applied all the Bill of Rights to the states. My name is Olurotimi Osha, and as I've stated earlier, I've been wrongfully detained through subornation of perjury and fraud on the courts, and I will keep you posted. Thank you.